Hey, welcome back to Vilcabamba Real Estate Disclosures. And so we want to preface that really the reason our channel exists is because of Abundant Living Ecuador Real Estate and Shangri-La Real Estate. So we will continue to present information and encourage people to help us take them down. And in this video, we're going to be looking at the co-founder of Abundant Living Ecuador back in 2016 and really what their vision was and how far off the track they are now. And also we're going to look at some of the federal institutions like the Federal Trade Commission, the FBI, and also the U.S. Treasury, who are there and capable of investigating international cyber crimes, because we have money going from the U.S. to here. So we have a marketing campaign going on through YouTube with their 1,600 videos, right? And so, but let us start off. We want to introduce you to Didi. He's the co-founder of Abundant Living Ecuador. In a recent July 2024 correspondence, Mr. Didi responded by saying, "As a co-founder, I'm deeply disappointed to hear this damaging information. One of the company's founding principles was to provide expats with the tools and information needed to avoid rampant issues." So here's an excerpt from Didi's blog, November 2016, and links are in the description. And so it looks like they're friends from the East Coast, Jesse Bazinski and Didi. And so at some point they unify. They're now in Vilcabamba in 2016. Their original plans, it looked like they had a huge amount of land, maybe 600 acres, and they were going to set up some kind of infrastructure there. It's really unclear exactly what they were going to do. So real estate wasn't what they came to Ecuador to do. But once they saw the market, they decided to dive in. I think at one point they planned on being nationwide, right? They were going to have offices throughout Ecuador, and that would have been interesting. So here's an excerpt from Didi's blog, November 2016. "During our journey, we encountered qualified, trustworthy, well-connected people to help us in our search, and we hope we can be those people for you in the future." And it's those people that Jesse failed to mirror. As Jesse, Haiti, Carl, Roxanne, Ryan, and Brandon evolved into those other people who ruined our financial investment, lied to us, and unknowingly involved us in criminality, while simultaneously misrepresenting the benefits of living in Vilcabamba and Ecuador through cyber fraud via their electronic platforms. And one of the latest features of their fraud that's kind of coming back to haunt them is that Ecuador law is very clear. This is a collectivist culture. So when you're buying property in Ecuador from an Ecuadorian, you're actually buying it from the entire family, right? So all the direct heirs, all the siblings, I don't think it doesn't extend to uncles or aunts, it's the immediate family. They all need to be included in that transaction. They all need to sign off, right? And what's happening is Jesse, Haiti, and the crew and it's funny because of course Haiti being an Ecuadorian and them having a family, you might think that they would be valuing the family unit of Ecuadorians, but they're not. And so when they've been selling property, they've been ignoring the heirs. And so what's happened now is people, Americans, they bought land. They didn't know that Abundant didn't do their due diligence. And so now when they attempt to sell the land, they're going to find out that there's a lien, that they actually can't sell their land because one of the heirs has surfaced, as they do. They found out this transaction went on. All they have to do is slap a lien on, right? And then at some point, you're going to sell that land, and that's where they're going to come back and get you. So there is a couple of cases right now that we believe they're in the court where Americans have thought to sell their land, and it's encumbered now, right? So this is just one of the many benefits of using Abundant Living Ecuador real estate. So let's look at the FBI. Going back to the assassination of Fernando Villavicencio, Lasso called the FBI at that point. They've been embedded in Ecuador ever since. They're mainly at the embassy in Quito is where they're stationed, or the consulate in Guayaquil, but chances are they're feet on the ground, right? They're probably in Vilcabamba and other cities. They could be posing as potential buyers, who knows? But what we are hearing is that there is definitely sniffing around going on by the kind of sniffers you would want. And they're looking at Abundant Living Ecuador now, right? So what we really want to say is, if Jesse, Haiti, and the team entangled you in real estate fraud, join us in reporting to the FBI. And if you still need to do your due diligence in a prior transaction, get on it. And so what that would look like is you're going to go back to the original owner, if you even met them, of the property. You're going to get a copy of that deed at that time that they probably didn't show you, right? And then you're going to be able to put it together. You're going to realize that you paid probably $100,000 more. That's usually the amount that Jesse requires per transaction. So if you need any help with that, we have some contacts. Please get a hold of us. Our email is in the description of every video we have on both channels. So, and ditto with the Federal Trade Commission. So these international crimes are within their jurisdiction, right? Because we're looking at cybercrime, right? Let's be very clear about this. This is cyber fraud. These Americans, Jesse and Ryan and Brandon, are using these mostly American platforms to convince you to come to Vilcabamba so they can defraud you. And so quickly, there's an FTC challenges a massive overseas real estate investment operation harming Americans. This was November 8 of 2018. So we can see this was obviously a very significant, large fraud. But it was based on the promoter's promise, and it sounded like a tropical paradise. And that's exactly what they're doing at Abundant Living Ecuador Real Estate. Although it's on a smaller scale, Jesse is certainly hitting $1 million plus a year of illegal profits. So let's take a look at U.S. Code 1531, apprehension and prosecution of international cyber criminals. Who is believed to have committed a cyber or intellectual property crime against the interests of the United States or the citizens of the United States. So there's plenty of federal laws out there in the U.S., and if you're an American out there, and you're in another country and you're defrauding Americans, they're going to get you. They have every reason to get you. So essentially, we're encouraging others to join us in boycotting Abundant Living Ecuador Real Estate, and also their money laundering beverage business, which is Kumcha. Let's rename it Baboom Lasha. It looks like the Kumcha thing may have swirled down the toilet because that web address is inactive right now. Their Finca Farms link is dead. So the U.S. Safe Web Act of 2006, this act amending the FTC Act provides the FCC with several tools to improve enforcement of consumer protection, particularly those with an international dimension. These include increased cooperation with foreign law enforcement authorities through confidential information sharing and investigative assistance. The Act also allows enhanced staff exchanges and other international cooperative efforts. So we want to talk a little bit. So Carl Marson is quite a character, actually. I mean, he started off with Matt Mardark doing the raw food, and then he's worked at different places. And of course, he's stumbled into Jesse, and he's been associated with him. But we want to let Carl know that, why he may be a U.S. citizen, a Canadian, why he is a French-Canadian citizen, absolutely, that doesn't exempt him. If in fact federal authorities in the U.S. go after this establishment, we can see that they have extradition treaties with Canada. So, an Abundant Living real estate team operates a slick cyber fraud marketing campaign on YouTube, Instagram, Snapchat, WhatsApp, and X. And so here we have Americans, like we've said, that are influencing other Americans. And this is what's really sickening about this, is because Americans, we're just too damn trusting, right? And so here we have this American who is, if you really look at Jesse and Carl, if you really look at the team closely, you can see that something's really wrong with the entire group, right? There is a problem there, for sure, if you can see it. But here they are using their American citizenship and their culture to commit this fraud. So, and we know now that realtors, notaries, judges, lawyers, and police are not regulated or accountable for their actions. Ecuador is a free-for-all where corruption, bribes, influence peddling, death threats, ever-escalating violence, and criminal defamation laws keep all in fear. A personal insult on public platforms can be a criminal offense. And so we're going to be looking at this trifecta in another video, because it's not just these clowns that are doing it, but we have, for example, John Espinosa of Espinosa, Rameriz Ruin in Loja. They're a major prominent player in this fraud, right? We need that attorney. And kind of like what Saul Goodman said, do you need a criminal attorney or you need a criminal attorney? So let's talk about the fraud triangle real quick. So the three conditions that increase the risk of fraud is the how. The opportunity element of the fraud triangle refers to the circumstances that allow fraud to occur. Without it, fraud becomes impossible. So of course, there's huge amounts of opportunities through, these fraudulent notaries, these attorneys that we mentioned. The why, whether referred to as pressure, motive, or incentive, there is a nearly endless list of reasons a person would feel compelled to commit fraud. And, we've mentioned this before, but Jesse's a millionaire now, right? And his wife, they're multi-millionaires now. So why don't they stop? Well, if you go back to Madame Rosa and you look at our video on the Underbelly about her, she's running this, prostitution, this house of prostitution in London for 5 years. She's got 1.3 million. They have assets, right? And they don't stop. And Jesse's in the same place. He's already wealthy. Why doesn't he stop? Because he's more committed, it seems, to the harming the people. It's the psychological framework of both Madame Rosa and Jesse and the group is that the harm and the control seems to be much more important to them than the money. Because if it was really about the money, they would have been gone. So how do fraudsters sleep at night? Well, the thing is, Jesse's looking pretty ragged lately. So maybe he's not sleeping very well. But the rationalization of committing fraud is the most difficult condition to observe because it takes place in the mind of the perpetrator. Rationalization involves fabricating a moral excuse to justify the fraud. Well, there is none. And the perfect storm, the convergence of these conditions, pressure, opportunity, and rationalization form a high risk ripe for fraud. Each element interacts with the others. I mean, this is kind of ridiculous to look at in a way, but because it's just so fraudulent there, right? And as we mentioned just a minute ago, Jesse's forgotten the golden rule of operating a fraud. It's when to enter the fraud and when to exit. And so we're happy to report that Jesse, Haiti, Carl, Roxanne, Ryan, and Brandon are still operating. In fact, Carl just got a promotion, right? So he's now he's got some kind of ownership, managing director position because Carl wants the cash too, I guess. So, and they produce relentless videos, marketing how great Vilcabamba and Ecuador are. It's at the comedic level, as they're even laughing at this bullshittery. Their hysterical laughter, mockery, and t-shirts, nobody likes this, we don't care. It's a play of words about a Philly sports team, but has another meaning as these immature adults introduce the t-shirts in a real estate video mocking their victims, telling us all about their lack of a value system. It's pretty shameful, but who's going to get the last laugh?